Alright, welcome back, Battledome Baddies, to another review and card explanation video. Hopefully my mic is fixed. I think one of the knobs for the volume was turned down a little bit, so yeah, hopefully it's fixed. And let's get into this. So, level requirement 3 legends. How good are they on turn 3? And what about later on the game? These legends have stronger and neat effects. So, let's see. First up, we have Balthazar, a Villains of Neopia team. And the wording on this is target one of your opponent's fairies, play it on your side of the Battledome. So the wording on this is a little bit of a future proofing. So the target one of your opponent's fairies. Well, currently the rules are you can only have one fairy in play, and that goes along to your opponent as well. So the way of future-proofing this is saying that, hey, in multiplayer formats, you can target one of your multiple opponents as fairies, or if there is a way to get 2+ fairies in play at the same time, which would be pretty wild. One thing to note on this is that you will get on-play effects, such as the Naya Tutor for a paintbrush, which is quite good. And if you do use this, taking one of your opponent's fairies, you will send your own fairy to the void if you have one in play when you play Balthazar. So overall, it lets you steal a very, very strong card from your opponent, and you get the effects of that card. So it's a very, very good card. 5 out of 5. Next up, we got Blackwing from Defenders of the Neopia team. Card text is: reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and add 2 of the revealed cards this way to your inventory. Then return the remaining cards to the top and or bottom of your deck in any order. So some card notes. We have you must have 5+ cards in your deck to play, and I believe this is the best filter / top of deck stacking card that exists currently. So what happens if you reveal 4 or 5 cards that have a when revealed you may play this card, such as the Battle Fairy equipment? Well, you can only play 3 of them because 2 of the 5 cards revealed must be added to your inventory to resolve this card effect. So with revealing 5 cards and then letting you either filter them to the bottom or stack them for your own Battle Fairy equipment, for example, this is a very, very good card. 5 out of 5. Next up, Captain K from Defenders of Neopia. Card text is: look at your opponent's inventory, select 1 card and shuffle it into their deck. So in order to play this, I believe your opponent must have 1+ card in inventory. I could be wrong on this one, because like the first line just says look at your opponent's inventory, but I'm gonna go with your opponent must have 1 or more card in their inventory in order to play this. You do not shuffle that card into their deck; they will shuffle it into their deck. That's usually how card effects like this work in other games. And yeah, it's a little bit of disruption, and knowledge. So when you look at your opponent's inventory, none of this is like revealed. So it is still considered private knowledge in terms of game rules. So if you remember what your opponent has in their hand in future turns, that is a very good thing. It is only like a disruption for 1 card, so if there is like some sort of combo that exists, this will help you interrupt that if you think your opponent can do it or is playing it. At worst, it'll be like, hey, get rid of a card that they're going to play next turn. So it does have uses. I'll give it 3 out of 5. Next up, a Cherries from Cherries? How do you pronounce that? I'm not sure. A card from the Neopia Central team, or a legend, I guess, technically. Card text: draw 1 card from your deck for each Defenders of Neopia legend in your discard. So, I believe in order to play this, you will have to have cards in your deck equal to or greater than the number of Defenders of Neopia legends in your discard when you play this. So, if you play this on turn 3, considering if you played a Defenders of Neopia legend on turn 1 and 2, this will draw you 2 cards on turn 3, which is exactly like Combat Defender, which is a level requirement 1 card. So technically it's a worse Combat Defender if you want to look at it that way. However, it does have potential to draw a bunch of cards in round 2 or 3, and this is a card that I would definitely consider is being a build around. So if you had a lot of Defenders of Neopia legends in your deck, you would probably want at least 1 copy of this. Yeah. Overall, 1 star, just because it's not great on turn 3, and you do have to build around it, so I would probably suggest like 10 plus Defenders of Neopia Legends in your deck. But yeah, it definitely has potential if Defenders of Neopia get really good cards. And spoilers, they do have one really good card. Next up, we got Eyes of Dark from the Villains of Neopia. Card text says, draw 3 cards from your deck, discard up to 2 cards from your inventory. So some card notes, we have must have 3 plus cards in your deck to use. Valid numbers for discarding from your inventory for the second part is 0, 1, or 2 because it is up to 2 cards. This is obviously better in decks that have some kind of recursion that they are using as a strategy, so it gets you cards that you want to have in your discard there, and that really helps because you discard after you draw. Overall, this is technically just a replace itself draw card, so you don't really get any card advantage, but due to its effect of helping discard strategies, it's 4 out of 5 stars. Discard strategies and cards that interact with discard are very strong currently. Next up, we have Kazuki Lu from Villains of Neopia. Card text says, both players randomly place all cards from their inventory to the bottom of their deck. Both players draw cards from their deck equal to the number of cards they placed this way. So what does this do? Well, each of you are gonna count the number of cards in your inventory, and you give those a quick little shuffle to randomize those, and then put them on the bottom of your deck, and then you draw cards equal to the number of cards that you put on the bottom. So I believe maybe both players will need to have cards in their deck equal to the number of cards in their inventory before you play this. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. That might make a restriction on this card then. So anyways, in other card terms, we will call this sort of effect a wheel effect, because you are wheeling your hand away. There's a card from Magic the Gathering, it's called Wheel of Fortune, probably the most famous example of effect this way. And yeah, that's where the term wheel come from. So anytime you take all of your cards in your hand, or a good number of them, and then randomly put them on the bottom, and then draw a number of cards equal to or higher, that is what they considered a wheel effect. This effect is very great, very good for digging for one-ofs in your deck. So if you only have, for example, one Ghidorah fairy in your deck, as is the restriction for including a Ghidorah fairy, this will help you dig for it. It is potential to hinder or help your opponent just as much as you do, however. So like, for example, if they have a hand of all Codestones and they're already level 5 or 4, well, you just help them out more than you helped yourself, most likely. That being said, a wheel effect is also a pretty good form of disruption. So if there are decks that rely on having a lot of cards in their hand, this could be quite useful. But yeah, anyways, wheel effects usually quite good, or at least specifically in certain strategies that can make use of them more than your opponent, so I'm going to give it a 5. Next up, we have Cow Defender from Defenders of Neopia team. If you have 6 or more cards in your inventory, your Neopet can make an additional attack this turn. So this is one of 2 cards that let you attack again on your turn. This gives you 1 attack on a turn that your Neopet is frozen. Normally, the frozen term mechanic says that if your Neopet is frozen, skip your first battle phase, like a first attack in the battle phase. The only times that is like relevant is if you have Cow Defender or another legend, which I believe is level requirement 4. So yeah, anyways, very good card. Making additional attacks are very strong, and there's a lot of decks that could use this. Obviously, it is a little bit better on turn 5 when you have more Codestones and or equipment, like stronger equipment. But yeah, on turn 3, it's pretty decent too. Next up, we have Lady Frostbite from Villains of Neopia team. Very simple, freeze your opponent's Neopet. And as discussed previously, a frozen Neopet skips their battle phase. And a card like this will go very well in a control style play deck. So I'll give it 3 stars out of 5. And next up we got Muka from Villains of Neopia. Card text says, target one of your opponent's equipment, send it to their discard. If you do, you may play a card from your discard. So in order to play this, your opponent needs to have one or more equipment in the Battledome to play, and as you play Muka, you will declare the target of the equipment, and if you would like to, the card that you're going to play from your discard. Another note is that since Muka is still considered to be in the Battledome resolving the effect, you cannot target Muka, the one that you just played, as the card in your discard. So playing from discard is a May effect. You do not have to use that, and you must have the level requirement to play the card from your discard that you're targeting. Overall, very, very good card. If your opponent has any sort of equipment in their deck, this is fantastic, because playing multiple cards in a turn is really good on a system that is designed for playing one card per turn. So, 5 stars. Next up, Punchbag Bob from Neopia Central. Card text says, when you play this card, it stays in play. At the beginning of your opponent's battle phase, roll 1 die. On a success, block all blockable damage this turn. On a failure, send Punchbag Bob to your discard. So, this is a very interesting card. It is not like an equipment, but it does stick around after you play it. So, it is a potion style effect, because you need to roll a die and then get a success. Or a failure will give you kind of like a nothing, you did nothing effect. Note that this does not block critical successes on damage. So, what are we going to rate Punchbag Bob? Well, we'll give him 4 stars because he can prevent a lot of damage if you roll well on 1 die, and it is quite literally a 50-50 if you get the effect or not. But yeah, obviously very good, or better in the later game when your opponent has a lot more attack, and yeah, pretty interesting card. I wonder how many future legends will stick around in the arena. Next up, the Ghost Loop from the Villains of Neopia team. Card text says, until the end of your opponent's next turn, when any number of cards are discarded from your inventory, deal 1 damage to your opponent's Neopet. So this is a form of direct damage, which is very, very good. And some card notes. This has been nerfed to no longer trigger from the Ghost Painted Neopet ability. So if you discard a card to the Ghost Painted Neopet ability to get +2 attack or +2 defense on a turn, well, this does not deal 1 damage. And also noting that 1 damage per instance of cards discarded. So for example, you have Jidora's Wand, a level requirement 5 equipment in play, and you opt to discard 3 cards to it, and the Ghost Loop will only deal 1 additional damage instead of 3. As it is a form of direct damage, this is a potential finisher card, especially with cards such as Jidora's Wand that can deal a whole bunch of direct damage to your opponent's Neopet. That being said, there are very few equipment, legends, and food that let you discard and trigger this effect, and the legends are kind of irrelevant because this will be your 1 card per turn, and it only lasts until the end of your opponent's next turn. Yeah, it's definitely a build around card. Definitely would have been a lot stronger if they kept the trigger from the Ghost Painted Neopet ability, but they got rid of it, so he's a lot weaker, but definitely has the potential to be a menace. So I'll give it 2 stars. Next up, the Masked Intruder from Defenders of Neopia team. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may play one. Return the remaining cards to the top and or bottom of your deck in any order. So in order to play him, you must have 3 or more cards in your deck to play. It is a May effect to play the additional card. You don't have to use it. You cannot play a Codestone as well because Codestones are attached. And playing a second card on a turn is very strong. You must have the level requirement to play the chosen card, and it does also not reveal cards. So this is also a pretty good top of deck stacking card and or filtering card. So we'll give him 5 stars. Pretty good potential. Next up, we got Usel Defender from the Defenders of Neopia team. Very simple card. Draw 4 cards from your deck. You must have 4 cards or more in your deck to play it. And this is technically a double Corvette Defender on 1 card. Oh my gosh! This card does give you +3 to card advantage because it replaces itself and then draws you 3 additional cards. So yeah, pretty good. 4 stars. I think it's a single card that has the single card that has the most draw X, as in X being a solidified number that does not require some other thing such as the bank manager or the one that we looked at earlier, Cherise. Yeah. So yeah, can definitely be pretty good. Probably wouldn't include more than one in a deck at a time because drawing 4 is a lot, but you never know. Next up, Uzaro from Villains of Neopia. Your opponent randomly discards 2 cards from their inventory. So your opponent must have 2 cards or more in their inventory to play. You cannot play this if they have only 1 card or 0 cards, based on past rulings of cards. So I'm gonna say that, but let me just double check the Discord. We did not receive a confirmation from Battledome Bob, so yeah, I'm gonna go with that. He's 2 stars because random discard is much better than their choice, but also you can help your opponent more than hinder them because there are so many cards that want to interact with the discard in the base set. So yeah, potential to be pretty good. This is more of a aggressive discard, I would say. But yeah. Next up, we have Vera from Villains of Neopia. Very simple card effect as well. Target a card in your discard and play it. So you must declare your target when you play Vera, and you must have 1 or more cards in your discard to play. You cannot target the Vera that you just played because the Vera will stick around in the Battledome until it is fully resolved. And you must meet the level requirement of the card to play it. Very, very good card. 5 out of 5. Probably an auto include in almost every single deck at this point in time. Because, yeah, you can recur stuff that your opponent already made you discard or that you put there on yourself on purpose. Of note, you can not play Codestones again because it is playing a card instead of attaching. And probably a very good, very, very good use of target a card in your discard and play it is paintbrushes. And yeah, that brings us to the final rankings. So 5 out of 5, we had Balazar, Blackwing, Kazuki L, Cow Defender, Muka, the Masked Intruder, and Vera. 4 out of 5 stars, we got Eyes of Dark, Punchbag Bob, Usel Defender. 3 out of 5, we have Captain K, Lady Frostbite. 2 out of 5, we have the Ghost Loop Uzaro. And 1 out of 5 stars, we have Cherise. Let me know what you guys think about all these cards, because I feel like I can definitely be wrong on these, and some of these cards have the potential to be like extremely good in the future. So yeah, we'll have to see what is in the future sets. Alright, thanks for watching.